Hear that? Yeah? Okay. Welcome to the Monday, May 11th, 2026 regular council meeting. I would like to start by acknowledging that we are gathering and governing on the unceded traditional territory of what is now known as the Comox Nation, and we are ever grateful for their grace and collaboration as we do this good work on their lands. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of the agenda? And that's carried unanimously. And there are minutes from April 27th and April 27th, Committee of the Whole and Regular Council.
I'll move the minutes.
Second.
That's carried as well. No delegations. Correspondence. First up is Comox Strathcona Waste Management endorsement of the Solid Waste Management Plan. So there's a recommendation to receive. If we would like to write a letter of support, we can direct that now, or we can just receive for information.
I think we sort of stated what we wanted to state last week. Is there any reason to write a letter?
I don't know whether I think they need a letter for the province to go, or they don't need it. They request the letter to go along to the province, I think, for approval of the, whatever it is, whatever the acronym is.
Yeah, it says, please forward a letter of support to the Comox Strathcona Waste Management no later than June 1st, if you are in support.
Do we want the letter to reflect the conversation we had, or do we just want to support the waste and follow up with those other?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, just support the plan as it is. Yeah.
Okay.
You making a motion?
Okay. I'll move that council receive the correspondence from the Regional Solid Waste Advisory Committee regarding endorsement of the Comox Strathcona Waste Management 2026 Solid Waste Management Plan, and that we submit a letter of support.
Second.
All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you.
No.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't support it.
Okay. Opposed?
Last meeting, so, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there's enough for diversion on that plan, so I don't support that.
Okay. So Councillor Sullivan opposed. Okay, and next up is Community Energy Association Local Government Climate Action Program. This is correspondence around LGCAP, which, as you know, is our funding mechanism to implement our climate action plan, among other things. And that funding is not in the provincial budget outside of 2026. So there is a move afoot to ask the province to ensure that that funding continues. So I think they're looking for a letter of support. And I think the other thing we might consider is a resolution to UBCM, because I don't think a resolution has gone to any of the area associations around LGCAP. But I know there is a lot of concern around there. Anyway, questions?
Well, I just comment to say that LGCAP has been a really important mechanism, not for all aspects of climate action, which are much more extensive than you might think on the surface. And we've been able to use that money for quite a range of infrastructure and other beneficial things. And if the province really means it on their climate goals, and if we really mean ours, we need funding like that. So I support a letter of support.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yep.
So I guess to that end, I'd recommend that Council receive the correspondence from Community Energy Association seeking your voice on no renewal of the local government climate action programme, and direct staff to write a letter of support.
You can direct the mayor to write the letter.
Direct
so
mayor
we don't
to
have
write a letter of support.
Thanks. Seconder?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Just less staff time if I do the...
For sure. Thank you.
And next up is village input to School District 71 Long Range Facilities Plan, a letter from a resident. Anybody do you want to speak to that?
Well, I guess I asked that this be brought from the correspondence to the table just because, as we had mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the school district is in the process of a long-range facilities plan. It's got a 10-year time frame. The next 20 years, the housing and needs assessments that have been done for CVRD and the surrounding areas suggest a 30% increase in population. That means 800 new students, probably, which is a whole high school. So either the 3 schools each get 1/3 bigger, or there's a 4th school in the valley. So knowing that the school district are I believe still intending to engage with staff for feedback and input into the plan as the village is a partner. I just wanted to see if council supported the sort of, if a 4th school is on the horizon, encouragement that the right location for it would be on this side of the river and close to a community to allow for active transportation. People can walk and cycle, and that means Cumberland.
I also believe that strongly. I think if you look at the enrollment in Cumberland or elementary here and the middle school, it makes sense to have something on this side of the river instead of busing everyone out that way or parents driving and picking up their kids on that end of town if we have something locally available. I don't see the lack of demand going down, and it's kind of imperative that we get something close to town where people can walk and we don't have to rely on bus transportation to it. So I support this wholeheartedly.
I'm just wondering, is there a piece of land that we're thinking of?
Yeah.
And then how do we go about setting that aside if we do identify a piece? If it's private land, if you just zone it, then you've denied them their ability to do other things with that land. And if the school board is not purchasing it immediately, then where are they at? These are the sorts of questions I've got around this. That I don't understand how this process fully works.
So maybe I will. So I did talk to our school trustee today, who has been advocating for a high school on this side of the river since she became a trustee. I also was part of that conversation. I think every new trustee from Cumberland goes in and says, hey, how come the high school's not on this side of the river? And there is, at this time, no plan to build a 4th high school. Enrollment in Cumberland is actually taking a small dip from the recent trajectory. And the school district has quite a complex and constrained mechanism for building new facilities. So as you know, the province has to fund entirely a new build. That is extremely unlikely. And there's a lot of other improvements to our existing schools that I think the board might prioritize over a brand new school. Having said all that, as a long-term consideration, I think the mechanism that we have in place, which is our development service, having conversations with the school district to understand our growth trajectory and that sort of thing, is a good mechanism. But I'm not sure I would support putting aside land at this point. If we, after our next OCP and the next stage of growth, if we saw that growth, continuing, what I see as our growth slowing slightly, then maybe but I think there's already a mechanism in place for that. So when you build a huge number of new homes, the school district is aware, and then they build that into their planning. So I'm not exactly sure. I know so the letter asks for a formal response to the long-range facilities plan supporting future secondary capacity on our side of the Comox Valley, to work with SD 71 to identify and protect a potential school site within Cumberland, and then continue advancing tools such as school site acquisition approach tied to growth. So I'm not some of that is our work and some of that is SD 71's work. So adding that for discussion.
Yeah, I don't, I don't have much more to add. I just always thought, yeah, it was instigated by SD 71 way ahead of time. So that's kind of what I would think. I think the channel should always be open, and it would be nice to get something on this side, but it really doesn't seem forecasted by SD 71 at all. And I don't know what land we would use. As Councillor Tyrion said, if somebody's got an idea, that would be great, but we don't really have this kind of land within the village right now. Yeah. So I don't, yeah.
Yeah, I would add that, you know, my intention on bringing this to discussion was knowing that staff are going to have conversations as part of this plan. I wanted staff to hear our conversation. I don't expect us to come out with a motion. I don't expect us to put a formal, put together a formal written response in this way. It's that if the idea is floated and alive in the conversation, then as it progresses forward, you know, I don't think anyone's identifying land right now. You know, if you said right now, it would be the interchange lands, you know, or something like that. But that's well down the road. It's really not to let not to let things slide by and you know, be 10 years down the road and the need has grown to the point where there's yeah. What am I trying to say? That I think if the school district were minded to look for property, we would be supportive in terms of the appropriate zoning, the appropriate development, the appropriate conversations, and we'd welcome it.
Happy to take all those kids from the little islands. Yeah.
Can I just jump in quickly as well? There's also an online survey that everyone should fill out so you can individually say that that's something that you want as well. And
Yeah, there's an open comment, I think, at the very end. There's a bunch of questions and then there's an open.
yeah, so
Yep.
if that was a wish of everyone, they could fill that in.
Okay, so there's probably a recommendation to receive that correspondence.
I move the council receive the correspondence from Case Naden regarding the village input to School District 71 Long Range Facility Plan.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much. And next up is building bylaw amendment for energy step code, zero carbon step code and housekeeping.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. The report before you tonight introduces Building Amendment Bylaw number 1254, 2006, and seeks Council's endorsement to proceed with engagement with the local development community. The proposed amendments update the village's building bylaw to formally adopt the Energy Step Code, the Zero Carbon Step Code, along with several housekeeping and administrative improvements. No adoption is being requested tonight. With respect to the Energy Step Code, the proposed approach aligns with the BC Building Code and neighboring jurisdictions. And then with the Zero Carbon Step Code, we're proposing to align with the City of Courtenay, with the third step taking effect January 1st, 2027, and the fourth January 1st, 2028. This aligns with Council's climate goal B3 of the Council's Climate Action Plan, and then also there are some updates. We're going to look have a good look at the fee schedule and potentially propose some changes to that to make sure that they align with the cost to deliver the services, as well as moving that fee schedule into the fee bylaw, which is our current practice. And so if Council endorses the proposed approach tonight, council will proceed with targeted engagement, public outreach with feedback returning to council for consideration before the bylaw comes forward for readings. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. This is a bit of a complicated thing. I know it created a bit of confusion at the city of Courtenay when it came forward, but if there's any questions about the differences between the step codes or anything else, happy to clarify.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. It's complicated. And so thank you for doing your best to make it clearer for us. My only question is around the engagement and what that looks like. Like, are we just doing engage on the CVRD website, or are we actually like emailing our building community, or what is that?
Yeah, both. So we're going to email the list of people that have built in Cumberland over the last couple of years directly, and then we'll provide a brief summary in the email, and then invite them to view the materials on an Engage page, which we've developed and will launch likely tomorrow, and then invite feedback from there. And
Awesome.
Essentially, the decision points here are to do with timing. So this is something that the province has provided, I think, in an effort to sort of allow for communities to set their own pace. But it's essentially the timings of moving through the steps that are the decision points.
Yep. Go ahead.
No, I think the engagement portion is really important. Just looking at the survey with some of the other builders within the valley there's some, obviously council wants to meet these targets, but there were some really standout things. Number one, do local builders have the training, and will this allow them enough time to have that training without compromising their ability to provide homes in the valley and in Cumberland specifically? And the other one was around supply lines and that. Can they get the necessary materials and things? I'm not a builder, but I imagine there's some specialty products along the way that may not be available, or may be a barrier to them meeting these in a timely fashion. So those are the two big ones that really stood out for me, and to get their feedback on it.
Sure. I can make a couple of comments that might provide some clarity
Please,
around
yeah.
those points. So one, this whole process involves sort of a new profession, well, they're already active, but energy advisors. So most of the as far as meeting the step or moving to the next step or exceeding a step, all of that stuff comes through the advice of an energy advisor, and then also I think there's been an effort that's been made to make it as not prescriptive, but basically with an energy advisor, potentially with the architect, they can work back and forth to figure out what is the most economical way to meet these steps. So whether that's, they can make choices between triple pane windows or more insulation or different choices like that, which could potentially, solve supply issues.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm just looking forward to the feedback, just as the timing, for sure. Yeah, this all looks great, but definitely the builders are the ones who need to comment on what they think is best, for sure, at this point, I think.
Yeah, I think there's some, or what I've heard is a bit of concern around the cost of building increasing. But I think the important piece of that is the initial cost to build might increase, but then the cost of operating is dramatically decreased. And in fact, some of the research that I did showed that you can maybe even wash some of the increases while you're building. So yeah, it's complicated, and that's why it's open to builders doing it the way that I think is proper. And I think aligning us with the same time as City of Courtenay is also a good idea, so that it's consistent. at least in our two communities. Yeah, anybody else?
Go ahead, Nick.
Well, I'd echo all of that. I think all of the pieces about measuring and energy advising is in place already, as I understand. It's a requirement as of March, I think, from your report. Aligning with Courtney makes a lot of sense, and the province is going to be there in zero carbon by 2030, assuming they stick to their timeline. So that's really only a couple of years beyond what we're proposing here. So it's all coming, and the technology's all there. And these buildings will last for 50 to 70 to 80 years, so the sooner we increase the performance of them, the better. I'm down with this timeline. Yeah.
Okay, there's a
Thanks.
recommendation there.
Just a couple of questions for me.
Yes.
The engagement's open till May 29th,
Yeah.
but it said we were putting an advertisement in currently Cumberland for June.
So we made that as more of a for information,
Okay.
but because we recognized that we weren't going to be inviting people to provide feedback, in June when we were closing it in May. Not that that's not ultimately your decision, though.
Okay.
The time
Yeah, so I was just a bit curious about that one.
Could I just add something to that?
Yep.
Thank you. That was just that the engagement, getting information back is important, and we've got the direct email for that, and News Post, for example. But it was also important to get information out. So currently Cumberland deadlines are such that you need quite a bit of lead time. So we weren't able to make the May deadline we hadn't fully developed what would be the dates of engagement, and the website wasn't up yet. So we thought it important to put something in currently Cumberland about the project, but because of the timing, it'll be more about information rather than feedback.
So we'll have to get the word out through social media and other ways then. Okay.
and the direct emails.
Yeah.
And the direct emails to the builders, yeah. Is the increase in fees, it's showing from 0.6 to 1%, that'll be almost a doubling in fees. Is that gonna be in line with Courtney's fees then?
That is in line with the rest of the Comox Valley. So Comox, Courtney and the CVRD, I think, have all moved to 1%.
So ours are quite a bit lower at this point.
They are.
Okay. And then just a couple of things about the bylaw itself. I had a question about the Fire Smart, and then I saw that that's moved to basically DPA 4. All the Fire Smart recommendations. Yeah. Are we still going to be people that aren't in DPA 4? We're still going to be encouraging them to be Fire Smart, or will that be part of our building brochure or something like that?
Do you know the answer? Sure.
Yeah. So the fire department does a lot of Fire Smart education, and so it's really, we have realized in our work regarding Fire Smart and going through the revisions to the development permit area, it's so important to have that education for people who are just living their lives and they're not actually planning any renovations. They're not coming to us for any permits. And doing that, like putting that information in these documents that are about getting permits for things, it really wasn't the right place. It wasn't doing the job. So the fire department, as they have been, continues to do that education, and will continue to look for other ways through our advertising to do that education. But it wasn't effective to have it in building bylaw and development permit areas.
And then just the last thing on page 55, are we no longer a seismic zone? That little line seems to be just completely gone. Is there nothing in the building code about that, or? Page 55 of the, I think of the,
Yeah.
Of the
Section
package?
5.1C. There's a
I think is that also to do with right there is the climate zones.
yeah, it says the village of Cumberland is identified as a high seismic region. Design elements are to conform with seismic bracing requirements from the BC Building Code, but then that whole paragraph is
Yeah,
removed?
I think what we did with that, like, because what we were trying to do was to at any point we can refer to like other sources that are continually updated. So for things like snow load, seismic, climate zones, we referred to either Government of Canada sites, like for them to source that information and show that they've sourced that information from those other sites that will be continually updated, instead of us making that calculation, putting in a number, or like a fixed determination, and then having to update the bylaw afterwards.
Okay, so there's a line that I've missed in here that says we refer to these other documents provided by the BC government or the
Yeah,
BC Building
I can
Code.
look specifically at the seismic piece, just to make sure we haven't missed anything there, but that, that is what we were trying to do, was to make sure that
Okay.
we had everything referred to, like other sources that would be continually updated.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, there's a recommendation there then.
I'll move the council endorse building amendment bylaw number 1254, 2026 for engagement with the local development community, and the council direct staff to seek feedback from the local development community regarding the proposed approaches for implementing the energy step code and zero carbon step code.
Second.
All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Next up is January 30th, Perseverance Creek flood response and recovery.
Good evening, Council. So yeah, back on January 29th and 30th, I think as you're all aware, there was a fairly major rain on snow event affecting Cumberland, and specifically Perseverance Creek in the vicinity of Coal Creek Historic Park. The actual site of the log jam is in the Cumberland Community Forest, where the former bridge, well, I guess the bridge is still there, but the approaches aren't for the trail network there. So yeah, the flood caused significant damage to the bridge and the approach trails, as well as the resulting, since learned a technical term, avulsion, or the new channel cut through a former berm and into an old spillway and through the disc golf area of Coal Creek Historic Park. So as a result, there's ongoing trail closures as well as risks to nearby infrastructure, including the drinking water, groundwater drinking well source in Coal Creek Historic Park. So there's really two things going on in parallel right now. First is resolving that trail closure, recognizing that there's a lot of traffic in that area. There's a UROC trail counter on the bridge that had 22,000 counts across that bridge last year. And so after consulting with some environmental professionals and people very familiar with the Water Sustainability Act, the best approach chosen at a relatively low cost to enable traffic is a trail forward. So essentially formalizing a path through the existing, now abandoned channel, I guess. So we can try and organize people in that area, limit the amount of time they're exposed to some of the risks, including some unstable banks and hazard trees, while we continue with the second part of this project, which is through our regional EOC, and we've just received final approval for funding to complete a risk assessment. So that risk assessment would be to both the critical infrastructure, being the drinking water supply infrastructure, as well as downstream critical infrastructure at Comox Lake Road and the CVRD's drinking water supply source, cultural sites in the vicinity, as well as future flood resilience, recognizing the areas in a floodplain, and there's a lot going on with lots of legacy issues and wetlands and recreational assets and all kinds of things. And so the ultimate goal of that would be to inform both immediate mitigation measures, so that could include removing that debris jam and that bridge, and potentially some dredging or channelization work that would, if the risk assessment recommends such approaches, then we would want to proceed during this year's dry season, so that would be later this summer. In addition to informing longer-term planning and restoration work, of which there's a whole bunch of options, and it's not entirely clear exactly what it would look like, but this would be the first step in helping us get started. So with that, I'll turn it over to you for
Okay,
questions and
thank you.
discussion.
Who wants to go first? Questions?
Okay, I'll start. Sure. Yeah, I went down very recently and had a look at what, it's bone dry right now, all through there. When there is water in it, will this ford crossing, are then bikes and hikers going to be disturbing the stream bed once there is water in it? And is that,
And while you're answering that, where exactly are you thinking that Ford thing is going? Do you have, or do you know at this point?
Yeah, it's essentially the path of least resistance in which most people are currently crossing that are entering the closed area. And the permitting has been given to us, recognizing that this is not intended to be a long-term solution, but we don't know the timeline in which a long-term solution is going to be realized. So the risk management signage that we're developing and the community and the communications would be around warning people that the ford may not be crossable at all water levels. What we don't know is how much water will be in that now abandoned or secondary channel, given it seems as though there's been continued erosion in that that new channel into the old spillway. And so based on our observations over the course of the winter, the water was flowing in both directions, but increasingly the volume was mostly going, being diverted at the site of the old bridge through the disc golf course area. So there is a chance that there could be traffic that could be crossing at that site with water in that channel, but that's part of the ford, is trying to design it in the least impactful way.
okay. So then, and I guess this is what's going to be with the risk mitigation work. Is it going to be looked at to whether it's possible to re-divert it back into the original channel, the pre-January channel? Is that part of the scope of the risk mitigation work?
We've asked through the request for proposal for the experts in hydrology and the geoscientists and the biologists to explore all these options.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that nothing's off the table at this point. Okay,
Correct, yeah.
yeah. And has the bridge been like totally condemned, or is it possible that that's salvageable as well?
I think the challenge is the bridge probably isn't long enough in span for it to be reused at any location. But this is part of the challenge down there, is there's very few good locations for a bridge, recognizing it is a floodplain.
Yeah, it's wide.
And that it was built off of a berm on the north side of the creek to also like a low-lying area, and that's why there was those ramps. So it's not entirely clear, but I think the bridge has also been informally assessed to probably be reaching near the end of its lifespan anyway. So I don't see it as part of a future solution, nor do I think that it's necessarily in the community's best interest to reuse that infrastructure.
Yeah, thanks.
Anybody else?
Is it a little early to talk about disc golf course layout and design? Is that the possibility of changes there?
Do we even have a master plan for the disc golf? Like, is there an outline of what it looks like anywhere?
Like, do we have a drawing of its existing layout? Yeah, it would be based on an aerial photograph, so
Oh, okay.
relatively rudimentary. It's not like a surveyed drawing.
Right.
I think it's a little bit premature because, further to Council Tarian's question, the future flow regime and channels, that work has not yet occurred.
Yeah.
So it's uncertain what that looks like. I think that it's an important conversation the community should be prepared to have, but we're not quite at a point with having enough information to even inform that conversation.
I'm bringing it up for said preparation.
Yes,
Yes.
get ready, everybody.
Yes.
It's a high demand disc, it's apparently the best disc golf course in the
It's number
whole wide
26 in
world or
Canada out of
something.
949 courses
Saying.
actually recently. So
So-
top 3%. Good work, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Also, having sort of been there along that trail, maybe to have a little look. The bridge, as you noted, it's the approaches to the bridge that have gone, isn't it? You know, the bridge is now like 2 feet, 3 feet in the air. So I think I know where you were talking of fording it, but there's two questions really. There's clearly currently water flow that disappears below ground, but is still going through there right now. And I don't know whether it's inches below our feet or feet below our feet. The construction of a ford, does that effectively leave it still at the same grade? And is there any notable effect or known effect on the subsurface flow? And the second part of my question, as you step off the ford, between there and the start of a trail, there's significant erosion and potholing and all sorts of other changes. So is part of this work to also normalise and try and keep people to an area all the way up to the bottom of High Guy or wherever it is you begin?
Yeah. So the first part of the question around that subsurface flow, the intent is to use existing on-site material to build up. And that would enable that subsurface flow to continue. While creating a more accessible and obvious crossing location that would include trail repairs and some grading works on both the approaches. Because right now, if you were to enter the closed area, what you'd come across is kind of a trail braiding all over the place. There always has been, but even more so, there used to be a defined trail. Now if you follow that, you come to a little mini canyon that's been established. So one of the main focuses of this is to delineate a main pathway for the majority of people to access that area safely without ongoing trampling and degradation to the riparian area in the vicinity.
Thank you.
There's been lots of site visits with lots of different people, and there's very few obvious solutions or outcomes to this. So it's really meant, in some ways it's a trial. It's certainly interim. This wouldn't be the long-term approach to buy us time to get more information to further planning work.
I was just wondering if you have a timeline on this, or do you have to do the risk assessment first? Obviously, you want to avoid a point where you're in there and it starts raining again in the fall and the fish are impacted. I think that's of key importance, but that's probably well in your target.
So as I mentioned, there's kind of two parallel projects going on. So the first is with this proposed ford, and the truth is we've already started that one. We won't, if council doesn't provide support for that, then we will park it. But the reason is there's a 45-day turnaround for any Water Sustainability Act notification application. So that we have already submitted, and we have actually already received it. That just came in last week. But we would not proceed with construction. We've got environmental monitoring and machines lined up with the goal to do that later this month, recognizing that there's a lot of people interested in accessing that location. And so subject to council's approval to proceed, then we would aim to have that area reopened and that trail formalized with the temporary approach later this month. On the risk assessment, the RFP closed, I think just less than 2 weeks ago. We're just finalizing our evaluation and award process with the goal to get that going in May, to have a report received by midsummer to enable any follow-up kind of immediate risk mitigation work to happen in the dry season. So I think the fish window closes September 15th. We potentially could get an extension on that, pending, I guess, the specifics. So
Okay.
that's the timeline. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to move on to that risk mitigation piece. Just a question, really. The motion here effectively sort of sounds like it says proceed with the works, as in gain the assessment, decide the plan, and then go ahead and do it? Is there a point at which between deciding what to do and the actual doing that you need council input or we get input?
Well, I think there's a couple things going on with that, and the reason why it was put in was to recognize that we may need to proactively do some work through, if it's funded by the provincial EOC. This work, it needs to happen fairly quickly, or else those risks could return with the return of the fall rains. So there's also recognizing that council doesn't meet in August. And so if we don't receive this report till the end of July and we need to schedule that work in early September, then we don't actually have an opportunity to provide council with another update. And there is likely some time sensitivity in determining how water is going to flow through that area come next spring. And the risk is mostly around if there is another major event, that road is washing out, and it's to that well. And so trying to do a little bit of work to at least mitigate those risks, I think, is probably the goal. But this is really going to be informed by a holistic group of QEPs who several of them formed in response to the RFP, and we're very confident that there's going to be a really good team established. So it's a little bit of an exercise in trust, but also just realities of timelines and responding to these climate events.
And I don't know if I see it here, but if there is opportunity for volunteers, I know that the disc golf crew has a lot of muscle and a lot of bodies. So if there's any need for that, they could be rallied in for sure. They would be happy to help, I'm sure.
Go ahead.
This is a little bit off from that, but just regarding the well, is the well surface capped, like to prevent ingress from surface water? I know
That's hardly a parks question.
No, it's not. I'm just
is-
curious how big a risk that is.
I think it's being deemed fairly low, but I think the fact is, because that well exists in the floodplain, and this floodplain is actively known as a risk now, especially following this event, this helped unlock some of that provincial funding, which has been one of our kind of strategic responses, is how can we get some of this work funded without having to find our own financial resources. So,
Okay.
sorry, that didn't answer
It
your
didn't answer, but
specific question,
it gives me an
but-
idea.
We haven't done a formal inspection for that event there is opportunity for us to do that, but that's part of this risk assessment. What can we do to make sure that we are preventing that water influence system? So that's
Yeah.
why this assessment is trying to cover that in terms specifically, and then
Thank you.
Go ahead.
How are we currently funding this RFP for this risk assessment? The risk assessment.
We just received approval from the provincial EOC today, so it will be funded by the province.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I mean,
Love to hear that.
there's staff in-kind costs,
Yeah.
and we'll have to determine whether incremental or whether they can be part of the task number, but,
Okay.
yeah.
And you note that the ongoing forest land strategy planning process is, you know, that it's useful that that's happening in this stage. So do our conservation partners have opportunity to comment and be part as the risk assessment process develops?
Yes, so they have both been engaged on the immediate trail forward solution and helped formulate the proposal in front of council tonight, as well as, in addition to the Land Trust and the Community Forest Society, other local knowledge holders will also be part of the risk assessment as well. That's in the leading proposal right now. So it hasn't been formalized, but that's the intent.
Thank you.
And Guardians have been in there as well.
Yes, sorry, I
already.
should have acknowledged
Yeah.
that. They're also, well, cultural values are considered one of the key items for risk assessment. And, yeah, I think KFN's likely to be engaged under the current leading proposal. We just haven't finalized that contract, so we don't have an announcement to make.
Right.
Yep.
So thank you for this, and thank you for the, for working with the EOC to get this work funded. I understand it does not fund any recreation things, so the Ford, Trail Ford, will be out of our own reserves, which is fine. And lots of good questions on that. I guess my concern about reopening the area is all the damage to the tree roots, and whether we need to continue to have some kind of signage or tape or something in that area to be like, whoa, don't hang out here because
Yeah, so
trees are undermined.
the signs that are in development are going to suggest no stopping in the area.
Okay.
Almost similar to, on BC highways,
Yeah.
you pass avalanche zones, and although there could be risk of an avalanche coming down, if you don't stop, it's pretty low. So that's the same approach that's taken in trails. Usually trees, it's impossible to assess every tree along a
Yeah.
trail, but we recognize there's heightened risk, so signs would provide that warning.
Okay. Okay, great.
And we're trying to really delineate the path so that people, are.
We're directing them away from.
Directing,
Yeah.
them to stay in the areas that are safer, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Good work. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, there's a recommendation there.
Yep. I'll move that council direct staff to proceed with constructing a temporary ford trail crossing of a channel of Perseverance Creek in the Cumberland Community Forest Park. And that council approve the expenditure of up to $6,000 to be funded through the General Financial Stabilization Reserve for constructing a temporary trail ford crossing of Perseverance Creek in the Community Forest Park. And that council direct staff to bring forward an amendment to the adopted 2026-2030 financial plan bylaw to reflect this expenditure. And that council direct staff to proceed with the immediate risk mitigation works for the protection of critical infrastructures as identified by the upcoming Perseverance Creek risk assessment, subject to securing funding from the province.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you so much. Thanks, Kevin,
you,
for
Kevin.
that work.
You-
Next up is community policing priorities for 2026 annual performance, but I guess the priorities are for 2027. So do you want to introduce it, or should we just talk about the list there?
You go right ahead if you're comfortable.
Okay. So we did have Inspector Mercer last council meeting, and we had a few, okay, bye.
See ya.
Thanks for coming.
The rest of it's fun too.
So there's a list in the staff report around what we talked about last week, or whenever the last meeting was, probably wasn't last week. If we have our
Sun
priorities,
came out and the
let's,
youth mischief is way up again. Like literally, it's like I watched motorbikes and illegal stuff all week.
it's definitely
2
dirt
weeks.
bike season, yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely is that.
Youth and other
There's
older
just
mischief.
Yes.
one thing I wanted to highlight, and it's kind of an emerging problem in a way, and that's just high-speed electric.
Everything.
Well, yeah, high-speed, but typically bicycles, but mostly high-speed electric motorbikes. There's a hybrid, and they're often in the bike lanes and just whipping along, and it's coming out more and more. Obviously it falls into some of these, but I just like maybe a highlight with something like that. I know we talked about at AVICC allowing electric wheelchairs within the within the bike lanes, which I don't terribly see a problem with, but this is something else, and it's coming from more of an emergent technology with these things. So it's not just a problem here. It's from here to Courtney to Comox. You're seeing it everywhere. So.
Yeah, and I did just see a post somewhere, maybe by the RCMP, that was like here's where you're allowed if you're on any of these. So it might be good for us to do a bit of
And
proactive.
I think an education program, and I was just discussing this with some of my colleagues in Courtney as well, just have an education program, because I don't think people often necessarily know the rules surrounding that. So.
No.
That post was news to me, all those rules with the licensing requirements and.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, all of them are illegal.
Yeah.
Any of them, yeah.
Yeah,
Lots of
developing
electric
technology.
scooters on the sidewalk I've seen lately as well.
Okay.
That was
Yeah.
my only comment.
Oh, sorry. I I noted the list here that we picked up. The second bullet sort of sounds like we were interested in speeding enforcement for a 30k limit, but I think what we were talking about was please enforce in important safety zones, playground and park, and the enforcement for a potential 30k limit should be proportional. Right. So it was. So anyway, I just wanted to note that. But I saw as a priority, I wanted to group together traffic safety in that way, as playground speed, park speed, unlicensed vehicles, inappropriate vehicles, and that sort of side. So it's general. There's a general traffic safety bucket,
Which
that I
could
think
include
goes-
Councillor Baraki's initiative as well, yeah. And so I just want to check in on that, because I think what we want to do, the note in the background is that council formally identify community policing priorities through a motion that would be provided to Comox Valley RCMP. I'd rather write a letter so he's got a bit of context to because if and when we introduce a 30-kilometer zone in the village, I think what we would want is some proactive, hey, did you realize this is a 30K zone now? And a bunch of warning tickets. We don't want to be fining people right off the
Yeah.
I think we want to do some gentle, okay, bye.
Bye.
Some gentle kind of introduction to that, and then bring the hammer down later.
Or bring the hammer down if they are in school zones.
Yeah,
and park
exactly.
zones.
Yeah,
But,
that are
but
already,
yes.
yeah. So traffic safety, including all the things.
Mhm. I would certainly continue as of last year with community policing, relationship building.
Yep.
That's, I think,
That seems
It's
to
a very
be
positive
what they're
approach.
doing,
Yep.
yeah.
And also the late night patrols.
Yeah.
And trying to cut down on all of that
Unfortunate that the bikes. are
mischief
around
and
anymore.
nonsense. Yep.
Yeah, I like the late night patrols as well. So there's problem houses there.
Is that what trap house means? What's a trap
Mm-hmm. I think
house?
so.
It's a type
Similar,
of music
Is
that's
that
listened
what
to.
the kids listen
similar
to?
situation.
Trap.
I mean, it's nefarious to attracting other stuff.
Nobody's listening to our jokes. The gallery left, nobody cares.
So problem houses,
We still have those.
I mean, I think that's,
It's low,
yeah.
lower. We own one, don't we?
Yeah, let's not go there. And then there's mental health priorities, and then there's campground and boat launch. So, I do note that we just had correspondence from somewhere, from Lake Park Society, telling us about issues at the boat launch. Was that?
well,
Am I making that up?
I believe they're closing the launch overnight.
Yeah.
That's
So,
the,
and I wondered, I drove out there today, and I think that would be a good spot for late night patrols as well, because there tends to be people doing all kinds of
doing
things out
stuff.
there that are not even at the campground, but on the road to the campground. So keeping that campground in their purview. And also just, yeah, I guess that's also traffic. People coming off their boats into their cars. Okay, and mental health priorities? I'm not sure what that was.
There's a lot of unhoused people here the last couple of years, and I think that's sort of what it
Yeah.
was.
So just continuing to collaborate with service providers.
I think there's less of that right now. I don't know.
Yeah, there might be a shortage. Well, there's the Circle program and there's the car number, whatever it is. But the car number, whatever it is.
You're not experiencing that more specifically.
Yeah.
Seems less the last year.
Car 14?
Car 14, I want to say
I can't remember.
67.
Yeah, where they've got the mental health worker riding along with them. Yeah.
But that's a pilot, so I
Yeah.
wonder if including it here would be a good idea, just as kind of backup, that that's a thing we want. I don't know if that's necessary.
I believe. I mean, if we're writing this in a slightly more explanatory form, I think I would certainly say that continuing to support a mental health informed approach to policing. Mental health trauma-informed approach to policing is certainly what I'd like to see.
Which kind of goes along with community policing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Okay.
be cool, man.
MICR, it's called Mobile Integrated Crisis Response Unit.
It doesn't even have a number?
I'm sure it has.
There's,
Who needs a number when you got an acronym?
there's an informal.
Fine.
Yeah.
Packed.
Sorry, can you say that again, Councillor?
It's called MICR, and it is the Mobile Integrated Crisis Response Unit.
MICR.
Okay. Okay, so I have safety, traffic safety, including what can ride where, unlicensed vehicles, implementation of the 30K, if and when that happens, and then community policing, including mental health, and I might even put the problem houses in that. I don't know where that belongs, but problem houses and late night patrols, including Lake Park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anything else?
And do you want that as a motion for you to write a letter detailing these priorities?
Yep.
Second.
I think we might have to actually say the motion. Just to be clear. Do you want us to list all the things? Okay. Okay,
Yeah, I think there were a couple different versions
Yeah.
happening there.
okay. Okay, so maybe I'll just give it a try given my notes, because this is what I'm gonna write the letter off. Traffic safety. We're gonna lead with traffic safety.
Yep.
Yep. And then late night patrols, including Lake Park, and then community policing, and then, problem houses and, mental health is what I have. What did I forget? Problem houses and mental health. Okay, so, all those, and somebody else just read the motion.
Can I ask a
quick-
quick question?
sorry,
So the way
yes.
that was, your Lake Park campground patrols are part of the late night? I just want to double check that that's what you want. Like, or do you want just the Lake Park campground to be a priority, including,
Including late night.
Including
Whenever
late
they
night.
like.
so all, but,
Yeah.
Some at
Okay.
night, some during the day.
Yeah,
Switch it up. I don't think we have to be that specific.
yeah. Okay.
And can we, so do you want that as, can I, without having to read that whole list over, can we direct the mayor, recommend that, council recommend that, the mayor, write a letter to the RCMP detailing our community priorities as listed above?
Seconder?
Does that work?
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, great, thank you. Next up is disclosure of contract, if you want to,
I think
Disappear
since this is
yourself.
about my subcontract to a contractor, I will recuse.
we'll just yell when you're saying.
Can't imagine this take.
Yeah. Do you want to speak to this, Rachel?
Could briefly. So what's required just to disclose any contracts that the village has that may provide a direct or indirect financial benefit to a council member. So this is the report to do so. It became apparent that Councillor Ward works for a company that the village contracts with for website technical support. So this is, excuse me, just that disclosure for full transparency.
Okay, but he's not actually working on the village stuff that Bolin does, just the other,
Absolutely not.
Contracts.
And
Okay.
no access to the village website or work on the village website.
okay. Great. Anybody have questions or anything about that?
No.
No, this is a small town. Things
Yeah.
like this are
Yeah,
gonna,
somebody's
things
gonna
like
have
this are
some.
just gonna arise.
Probably not
Um,
more.
Yeah.
It's,
So there's just a recommendation to receive.
I'll move the council receive the disclosure of contract report.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Councillor Ward, you can come back in. Next up is appointment of Chief Election Officer and Deputy Chief Officer, because apparently there's an election in October.
who knew?
Tell us about it, Rachel.
Yes, there is. This is one of the essential pieces to start us off with the administration of the election, the appointment of your chief election officer and a deputy chief election officer. We don't expect much difference in the administration of this election than previous. The voting days are October 7th, 14th, and 17th, which are the 2 Wednesdays, and then the Saturday with the final voting on that Saturday, and they'll be held downstairs in the Buchanan Hall at the Cultural Center. We also run the school district trustee for Area 3 of the School District 71. That's included on that ballot. The report also gives a bit of information about how BC elections support elections in BC by administering and enforcing your candidate campaign, financial campaigning, and advertising through that agency, which is really lovely that they do that for us. Takes a bit of the workload off. So we're recommending that the corporate officer, Rachel Parker, myself, be appointed as Chief Election Officer, and this year Andrea Sampson has stepped up to be a Deputy Election Officer in case something happens in the meantime and we need someone to step in. Happy to
Okay.
answer any questions.
Questions?
I'll
Okay,
move
there's
the
a rec-
council appoint Rachel Parker as Chief Election Officer and Andrea Sampson as Deputy Chief Election Officer for the 2026 general local election.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Next up is temporary project manager support. Okay, Michelle?
There we go. So, there we go. So this report in front of you seeks council approval for a temporary project management position to address some significant workload pressures that we've been experiencing. So the Director of Engineering and Public Works position has either been vacant or covered on an interim basis for several of the past months until just recently. So this position manages a large operational portfolio, also while the village has delivered several major capital projects. And those projects also include some of the largest in its history. So these are important just to kind of understand because of the backlog of everything that this has created. We have done a lot with very little, actually. We've moved that wastewater. We've done so much, but it has been at a cost, and we're very far behind. So we have sufficient stabilization funds available. A while ago, we actually took surpluses that were in the solid waste. Because that's what it's for. We put those in the stabilization reserve. We've been using them to stabilize rates, but we had to get ready for that auto cart, so we've been using some of them. We have some funds left over. We want to use that for this position if you approve it. And this position will address the backlog resulting from these recent challenges that we've been experiencing. And one of the things I wanted to mention as well is it was very important to wait to assess this need until now, until a permanent director was in place. And so now that position is in place, we have identified a temporary project manager that would be the most effective way to advance these complex initiatives, such as one of them being, the automatic carts transition is huge. The other one being a comprehensive asset management plan. That's super important and has been getting delayed. There's several other projects. The report doesn't even talk about all the parks projects as well, but there's several other projects. And the reason why I mention that in the report is because that means there is no collaborative, there is no team help. There's no, like, we're all very much at capacity. So some of us have jumped in the interim to do this, to bring solid waste to you because it just couldn't wait any longer, like in that. But then that puts our projects behind. So it's just a domino thing. So basically, without this temporary role, though, other priorities will be deferred because of the solid waste. It can no longer be deferred. And then, but one thing about this that I want to bring up is building this capacity and having this temporary project for these, and having these initiatives done, like your asset management plan and those types of things, it will improve efficiencies. So it'll actually enable staff to operate in a more proactive way moving forward, rather than often when you have these an organization with these capacity challenges, you're just stuck in reactive zone all the time. So we'd really like to get caught up, and then really would love one day to be able to be proactive and bring to you like strategies, and that's where we're really wanting to get to, and we think that this will bring it. So I can answer any questions you might have. I might also bring Dave up if you have some questions. But we're recommending that you approve the expenditure for this position so we can move on that as quick as possible. Yeah.
Bring that up then.
Okay. Questions, council?
Do you have room for them?
Where would they be? In here?
Yeah, they're.
Do we have a closet somewhere? Where are we putting this
Yeah.
person?
They're going to be sitting on Dave's lap. No, I'll let him speak to that. Where will they be?
Like an office space.
Yeah.
We're still working on a few logistics there. I want to work with our HR department as well, just to make sure that we've got some space. But there's a couple of renovation projects in the budget that
Yeah.
see some changes, but we don't know timing-wise on those ones. So in the interim, there is opportunities in the Public Works building there where we are. That we
Okay.
could convert a desk over and get them at least situated with a phone and laptop and things like that, get them started.
Okay.
So onboarding-wise is not an issue.
We maybe won't put a photo of that in the recruitment materials. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Two questions. My first one, I think, is quite straightforward. Will you be looking for? Will the job description require someone with project management certification, or is that a?
We're not concerned about that at this time. We're mostly looking for someone that has project management experience, but not necessarily a designation like myself.
Okay.
So they will still be managed and overseen by myself and also our other project manager. So they'll be helped in that regard. It depends on the level of candidacy that we see. Hopefully we do see some that have that designation. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
But it would just be an asset to have in that application process. That's how we're seeing it right now. We still can consider changing that if need be.
No, that's fine, as long as that's a preference. And then I note that naturally this project manager position is housed within Public Works, but the projects you've listed and some of the things you mentioned span the organisation. So is the intention that this role supports and drives projects across the across the departments, and not only in the Public Works realm?
Well, asset management is across all departments, but we will consider probably the reason why it's in Dave's department is because that is really we foresee that asset management in the long run is going to live in his department. Yeah.
Oh, it's a natural
So
home.
the other projects that we mention in the report are not necessarily like the financial system things like that. They're not going to be doing those projects. They're going to be doing the auto carts mainly, and the and then asset management and different public works projects probably to catch us up.
Well, I think my question comes from a place of the more professional and trained project management skills we have in house, the more useful it is to bring those skills to all departments and apply them to all major projects. So that, like, the finance implementation is a major project, for example, and yeah.
And one thing I will say about our permanent manager of municipal projects is that we do strategize for that work plan at the director level for all over the municipal. So
Yeah, it's a bit of a timing issue. If that individual is then leaving under a temporary term, we don't want to lose necessarily where we're at with that project, right? If that is incomplete or if there's other challenges along the way. So we're trying to be mindful of the size of things we give them, but it's to try to get a lot of those smaller rocks moving and keep our other project manager with the big rocks, if that makes sense. Rolling.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A couple questions on that. Just tying in with the financial system replacement. I mean, obviously, asset management does play a role in there. If there is
definitely
any
does.
opportunity to have some overlap, because you probably will need a larger team and input from that individual as well, that would be useful. And in getting this role, I assume that this will free up time for the financial aspect to be looked at a little more closely rather than being reactive with everything else. Would that be accurate?
yeah, I mean, with the manager of municipal projects, we've actually already seen that. Like, there's some really good work in that area, and they meet directly with the CFO on a regular basis for those. And yeah, so
Okay.
we do expect that for sure.
And just another question, I know it's coming out of the stabilization funds. Did you also see some realization of savings just because that position has remained vacant for a while? So it's not just a huge punch, or the vacancies? Yeah.
That was 2025, so yeah.
That doesn't play into this really.
Well, those, like, as part of our reserve policy, those surpluses do fall to the stabilization.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
yes.
That's okay.
But these particular funds have been earmarked for solid waste for a while,
Right.
for stabilization, so, but yes, it's all part of it. It's
Okay.
one reserve.
That's, yeah, so it's not just an extra big hit. We've actually had savings
right.
because of
No.
that vacancy. Okay.
Yep,
Key.
absolutely.
Anybody else?
No, I'm just looking at this list of projects that we are behind on, and yeah, I can definitely see why we need another hand
Yeah.
to try and start ticking off some of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so, okay, so the plan is for a year, and we'll see what we can get done in that time.
Yes.
Okay, there's a recommendation there, council?
I can move that council approve expenditure of up to $145,000 for all costs associated with a temporary one-year project manager position to be funded from the General Stabilisation Reserve funds, and that council direct staff to bring forward an amendment to the adopted 2026 to 2030 financial plan bylaw to reflect this expenditure.
Second.
All in favor of that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Next up is council member monthly reports. So there's a recommendation to receive if nobody has questions on those.
I'll move receipt of the reports.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Next up is 2026 tax rates bylaw for adoption.
Move the council adopt the 2026 property tax rates bylaw number 1260, 2026.
Second.
All in favor of that? That is carried unanimously. And next up is business license renewal extension.
I'll move the council unless.
Chris is coming up.
Oh, got it.
Whoa.
Sure, you can, yeah. Yeah. Give us your highlights.
Yeah, so we, with the 2025 updates, we brought in the late fee and a period after April year where in the late fee, and then this amendment extends that waiver period 3 months. So that works
Thank you. Any questions, council?
Just to be clear, this is, and for everybody listening out there, this is not extending the due by date, is it? It's just extending the late fee date before you're before you lose your license, basically.
Exactly, so a license still extends from the end of the calendar year, and then anyone that isn't able to, or something like by the end of the year, and that's where that applies, and this is
Okay, and then the only other reminder, I guess I have, or the thing I'm remembering now, is that businesses told us that they tried to come and pay while the office was closed because the deadline is December 31st. So I presume we'll put in that reminder, here's when the office is closed, don't come then. Yeah. And then everyone knows it's December 31st is when it's due. Yeah.
And just
Okay.
to be clear, so the $75 penalty would be January 1st?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the office may be closed, but the online payment works up until
Yes.
midnight on the 31st. And,
Okay, there's a recommendation there if there's no more questions.
I'll move that council give first, second, and third readings to business licensing amendment bylaw number 1262, 2026.
Second.
All in favor? That is carried, thank you. And next is notices, motions, and announcements, and the only one is Advisory Planning Commission, scheduled for May 14th at 4 p.m. in the Fire Hall Meeting Room. Please do check the website to make sure that that is actually happening when I say it's happening. And question period. The gallery has departed. Anything online? Nope. Okay. There's a recommendation to go to closed, please.
I'll move the council close the meeting to public pursuant to section 90 of the community charter to consider the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, a matter that under enactment is such that the public may be excluded from the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?